Okay, so welcome to the video. I think today's video in terms of running tips, and this is exactly what someone would say to get more views, but I think today's video is probably the most important topic to cover. And so I've been doing running tips videos on threshold and how to train and documenting my journey, training for the Paris Olympics, hoping that it'll teach people ways to train, things you could add to your training to help your training. And essentially I realized that what makes me good at what I do isn't just the specific training. So you watch one of my sessions, it says 10 by 1K, I tell you what heart rate, I tell you what speed. That's fine, and you can go do that. You can, even if you're smart, change the heart rates, change the speed, make the intensity relevant to you. But that's not what makes me good. What makes me good is what I do around the training. So how do I fuel that session? What do I do for recovery? How do I make sure the night before I have a good night's sleep so that tomorrow's session not just has a chance to go well, but if it goes well, that I can absorb more out of that session than perhaps I otherwise would have if some of the things that I do automatically now weren't in place. The automatically part is because years and years of experience watching other really great athletes, going on training camps with other really great athletes, you're exposed to, wow, why is that athlete doing that? Oh wow, that must really help. Oh, I'm going to add that into my training. It's amazing how long it took me after being exposed to all these athletes to make changes to my running. And that might sound like, I don't know what that sounds like. I would be exposed to something that must work, warm-up techniques, activation routines, foam rolling. I might even own some of the equipment that, these guys are using, foam roller, TheraBands, a self-massage stick. And it's amazing that it just is the saying, the penny didn't drop. Why was I not putting these things in place? And then I realized that there's a couple of problems. Some people have a lack of knowledge. I believe that some people really want to be better at running, but they don't know what to do. And then I think the other part of the problem is that you can tell people, teach people, give them the tips, and they still just won't do it. And that's the part that if you want to be better, you have to understand it takes work. Any aspect of life, anything you want to improve, it is harder to get things better than it is to keep them exactly the way they are right now, and you stay on that same trajectory that you're on right now. That's easier. Today's topic, I started this whole process because I really did believe, before I come back to today's topic, I really did believe that people wanted to be better. I just wish there was a way to take all the things I know and give it to people, and then they'd at least have the knowledge of what they could be doing. It doesn't mean that you will, but at the very least you have the knowledge. And today's topic, the reason today's topic is so important is because I can give you all this advice about training. You can buy training plans online. You can see all this wonderful stuff. I did, lectures on threshold training. You might want to start adding threshold training into your training. I did, a full video on heart rate and training. You might want to add that into your training. But today's topic of not getting injured trumps them all. Because the only way to get better at running realistically is to train consistently over a lengthy period of time at a level of what you can handle. And that's how you get better. But it takes time. If you could do it overnight, if there was such a thing as the overnight success, there would be way more really great athletes in the world. But it doesn't exist. it takes discipline, perseverance, hard work, every day, consistently, for a long period of time. People's motivation goes like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. When people are motivated, they do too much. When they're not as motivated, they don't do enough. And you need to draw a line through the center of that, up and down, peaks and valleys, and sit right there. On the days that you're super motivated, bring yourself down a notch, sit there. On the days that you're not as motivated, lift yourself up, get back into that middle ground. Living in that middle ground will help you not push too hard in training. It'll help you not do too much on perhaps a week or a day that maybe you haven't been motivated, maybe you haven't been training. You get this big lease of life, you want to go train, you want to go push. You do. That's amazing. Psychologically, that's what you wanted. But maybe your body physically wasn't ready for that big push, and so you get injured. Because you have to rebuild robustness. I started a running school and I was uploading training plans, and there was this whole teaching process, but I made sure that in the first couple of weeks of training there was a period of build robustness, build the ability to be able to train. And that means putting things in place like strength routines. That means rebuilding up your mileage figure at a sensible rate. If you do these things and you do it sensibly and you do it right, it's very likely you'll keep to a consistent routine. It's very likely you won't get injured, and it's very likely you'll run some of the best races that you've ever ran in your life. So, how you don't get injured. My first planning is the first thing I'm going to talk about, rather than longing it out. You have to have a plan. Before you can create a plan, you're going to map out this masterpiece plan, right? And in this plan, you're going to look at how many weeks you have to your next race. If you're just training to train, you can still map out a bit of time, 2 months, 3 months. What are you committing to? How much running do you want to be able to do? Why are you doing it? You map out this plan, but before you can map the plan out, you can have a think about your why. You can have a think about what it is you're trying to achieve. You can have a think about, if I achieve it, what would that mean? And they're all really cool things to include in your plan, because on the days we are not motivated, they're really going to help. You have to see it. You have to feel it. Like, I'm trying to train for the Olympics. I can see it. I can see it coming together. I can see the start of the plan. I'm struggling. It's hard work. So I make it even harder. You know, I don't wear super shoes all the time. I run on terrain that might be energy sapping. And I embrace that struggle. But believe me, I see myself coming out of the dark clouds and the stormy weather and the hard work and feeling good. And if you don't have that trail of thought and you don't think that way, the tough days are going to be really tough, because you have to know that there's basically a light at the end of the tunnel. And so see it, feel it, know your why, but you have to look back at what you've done for the last month or two. A lot of athletes start a new running plan and they think to themselves, oh yeah, I run 50 mile a week. That's me. I'm 50 mile a week. Yeah? Was that your best week? Was that your average for 3 months? Was that your average for a month? Is that your most ever? And these are the things you have to start looking at. You have to start looking at your last 3 to 4 weeks. How much running have I done? Have you gained weight? Have you not gained weight? If you're heavier, that increases the injury risk. And so you throw injury risk up on a hypothetical whiteboard. And injury risk is at its highest when you've just taken time off. Perhaps you haven't changed your running shoes in a while. Perhaps you've gained some weight. And one day you're like, that's it. I'm going to train for that marathon, that 10K, that half marathon. You go out that next day. Off you go. You haven't looked at what you've been doing. You haven't looked at how much you've been doing. And this is where I'm talking about toning that motivation down a bit. Bring it down a notch. If it's up here and it's high, bring it down a notch, but stretch it out. That stretching is buying you time. So you've looked at your last 4 weeks. You haven't ran 50 miles in 3 months. So you're not going to run 50 miles next week. 50 miles at 7 days a week is 7 miles. So if that's your average of your best week ever, you might have to start with 2 or 3 mile. You might have to start with a walk stroke run. You walk a bit, you run a bit, you walk a bit, you run a bit. You're learning to protect the asset, and you're the asset. Your body's the asset. People get into running, they do too much, they get injured, overuse. You're looking for this video to say, oh, that's all I have to do not to get injured? That's a piece of cake. It's not a piece of cake. You have to look back. First step, look back at what you've been doing. Make a very calculated decision. Put your injury risk up on the whiteboard. If you haven't ran 50 mile more than 3 times in your life in a week, and you haven't done it in the last 3 months, if you go try to run 50 mile next week, injury risk, the alarm bells go off. If you tone it down to 15 mile and you spread that across 3 or 4 runs, 3 or 4 mile each, and you have an intention that in 4 or 5 weeks time you could get to 30, 40, all of a sudden the alarm bells, they're quieting down. But people don't even think about it. It's you get this rush of blood, you get this emotion, you get this, I'm going to do it, I'm going to train for this marathon, that's it, I'm going to start today, running shoes on, off I go. 2 days later you have shin splints. And you go, I hate running. Why does running always do this? Just when I got motivated again, why did running do this to me? You did that, not running. You made a decision on no analysis whatsoever, and off you went. And now you have to deal with the consequences. So you're motivated, that's amazing. You have to spread that motivation into different areas. I don't want to do 15 miles, I want to do 20. Okay, I want to do 20. Injury risk, possibly a little bit higher. What can we add in to bring the injury risk down? Foam rolling, yoga, stretching, self-massage, warm-up routines before you go run, activation routines before you go run, hydration, better sleep. They are all amazing things to add in. So it's not just mileage, better shoes, shoes that biomechanically work for you and keep you free from injury. It's not just a mileage thing, it's not even just a speed or an intensity thing, even though they are important. But you have to start thinking about, alright, here's what I want you to do, body. I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you. Don't flinch, don't move out of the way, and don't get hurt. Come on. That's the problem. We ask a lot from our bodies, and we're not very good at paying it back. And so if you're going to get stuck back into training, start to look into adding these things. You've got your whiteboard, you've got your injury risk, you've decided based on looking back at what training you've been doing, you've decided how much you could do next week, and then how you're going to build that to where you wanted to get to. Do that both for volume and intensity. Don't just go straight back into hard running, but then start to map out a spider graph of what can I build around the training. How would that look? How would it help? I remember thinking if I did yoga every day, I'd never get injured. But I'm lazy. Yeah, it's hard work. Staying healthy is hard work. That's why it's easier to get injured. It's easier to get injured because it's easier to just throw your running shoes on, don't stretch, don't foam roll, don't do any pre-run activation, get out the door, get injured. That's easier. It's easier to not drive, maybe somewhere flat, maybe to a grass field, maybe to dirt so it's a bit softer on your body. That's too hard. That's hard work. You'd rather just go out the door. I'm in a layover right now in LA. When I go out the door, it's all downhill. I already know tonight I should probably, there's a grass field just across the way. I should just go run laps. Not up and down and pounding, etc., etc., especially not after travel. Could be a bit dehydrated. You have to start thinking about what you're doing. Are you making good decisions? And all these decisions that you make every day, that's what's going to keep you healthy. So you've got your spider graph, Epsom bath, ice bath, self-massage, you know, foam rolling, pre-run activation, better nutrition, hydration, all these good things. And seriously, if you don't know about pre-run activation, warm-up routines, go to joggingroom.com. Everything you could ever imagine on there in terms of what you should do pre-run, post-run, gym stuff. But if you've got an idea of what you're going to add in, then you plan it. I'm going to get up, I'm going to stretch a bit, foam roll a bit, do my pre-run activation. I'm going to do the mileage that, having looked back, I know my body can handle. I'm motivated to do more, but I'm going to be disciplined. If you're struggling with discipline, start journaling, write it down. What are you so afraid of? What's wrong with 3 mile this week? You're maybe the athlete that took 2 months off and did nothing. What's the problem with starting with 2 or 3 mile? What's the problem with starting with a bit of a run? Most people's psychology does this. If I can't do 7 miles, I'm not bothering. You can't get to 7 miles without doing the prerequisites. And then stop taking the big chunks of time off. And so break that body back in. Have a plan. Get to the end of the day. Write down, how did it go? Did you stick to the plan? Are you feeling anything? Is anything sore? Check out some of the strength videos that I have there. I think there's 3 strength videos. One is probably like, why is gym important? The other is a bit of strength testing, so you can see what parts of your body might break down. And the final one is, okay, I've done the testing, I know it's important, how do I add it in? And so listen to your body. Is something sore? Is something working a bit too much? And then start to think about, how could I activate that before I go run? Do I need to warm it up with a bit of a heat pack? And then every day, do I need to do, if it's your calves, do I need to strengthen them a bit? Am I wearing the wrong footwear? There's no simple answers to injuries. Put your whiteboard up. But one of the best things to do before any of this is put your whiteboard up there, your self-accountability whiteboard, and say, what is likely going to get me injured? Why am I getting injured? Maybe you're not doing any pre-run activation. Maybe the last time you touched your foam roller was, who knows? Maybe you don't look back at what training you've been doing and think about how much perhaps your body could handle. Maybe you didn't change your shoes for a long time. Maybe you're wearing super shoes too much and you wear super shoes all the time. When you hit the ground, your balance and stabilization muscles, they have to work. The reason we were supposed to run in neutral shoe, a structured shoe for overpronation, the reason footwear existed was to help us with some of our imbalances. Super shoes and the foam, your foot hits the ground, the foam's all squishy, your balance muscles in your ankles, they're all over the place. Serve a really great purpose when you get to the big race. Perhaps not as useful in the training build-up as we might think. Are you likely going to get injured because you don't have any strength program whatsoever? Doing the self-accountability whiteboard is a great start, because it's going to get you thinking, what do I do wrong? You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. If I skip gym for 3 weeks, 2 weeks even, my right hip starts talking to me. Hey Stephen, I'm hurting a bit. Maybe get back in the gym. It's easier to put none of this in place. Getting injured is a lot easier than staying healthy. At the root of all of this is self-discipline. Being disciplined to hold back in training. That's where intensity comes in. if injury risk is up on the whiteboard and you go do your intervals, your hills, your threshold, and it's, first of all, if it's not planned on a good day, maybe you've done too much hard stuff. I used to notice when I did 3 or 4 days, and I used to say if I have 3-4 days where there's question marks, I ended up getting injured. Maybe I did a run too quick. Maybe I didn't take an easy recovery day after hard reps, not threshold, hard reps. And all of a sudden, if there was 3 or 4 mistakes, I would feel an injury 7 to 10 days later, every time. And I could always look back. Injuries take about 7 to 10 days sometimes, overuse injuries especially. And I would always look back when I was injured, and I would say, that was it. Those 3-4 days, why did you do that? Why did you not run easy? You went and met that group, you went and did a hilly run. And there's patterns, you can track it back. Not doing a session at the right intensity can be catastrophic. Not only do you not get more benefits, because more isn't always better, harder isn't always better. In running, it's really simple. Stress the body, aerobically, anaerobically, beat the muscles down, whatever you're trying to do that day. Stress it at the optimum. When you put a cake in the oven, right? You're trying to, let's say you're going to bake bread or pizza, it doesn't matter. There is a optimum temperature. Hotter isn't better, colder isn't better. There's not a perfect science to it, but there's a, call it 180 degrees. 210, you burn it. 150, takes too long to cook. Comes out of the oven, tastes like shit. Simple. Running's similar. You want to do the sessions that you're planning to do at the right intensity, not just because you get a better end product, which you do by 1,000,000 miles, literally by 1,000,000 miles. You might not even realize that you have so much potential that you're not tapping into because you're either doing everything too hard or too easy. When you get it just right and you learn your sweet spots, what works, what doesn't, the reason it's so important for injury prevention also is because when you push a couple of reps that little bit too hard, you don't get any more benefit, but how much it beats up your body and fatigues your body goes way higher. So I'm going to give you an example, but it's a bad one because this is important. When you're finishing a race, right, and you've extracted a lot out of your body, and you're tired, most of the damage, when you're a bit sore after a race, most of that damage is done in the last K, 800 meters to a K, mile. When you're sore and you're tired and your body's hurt and you're breaking down, but you grind and you hustle to the finish line, that's the only day that it's a good day to do it, because that's you going and hopefully getting that personal best. But when your muscles are in that tired state and your body's already broken down, maybe your technique's a bit all over the place, that's when you're doing the most damage. So when you over push in training, and if you do it constantly, you're basically given too much and it's taken a lot away, right? Effort level, how much it's going to cause fatigue. Actually, effort level goes up, how much fatigue it's going to cause goes up. How you come off that session, i.e. when you go out the next day for your run, where your energy stores are at, where your body's at. If you could walk through a scanner and it said you're 20% recovered, and that's talking about muscle damage, neurological damage, all this kind of stuff, central nervous system. If you do the session at just the right intensity, you will walk through that scanner the next day and be in a much better position. Your fitness in terms of what you gain from that session will be a lot better. What most people are doing is often pushing a little bit too hard, and in running, to be better, it takes, honest to God, 10 or 20 of these sessions, minimum. I remember doing 3 times 3 miles, big session. I finished it, I texted my coach, I sent the splits, and he wrote back, nice. When you've done about 12 of those, you'll be in a pretty good place. And I thought, what? 12? Not next week? So the fact that it takes time means you don't have to smash it. Smash equals greater fatigue, higher injury risk, alarm bells, woo woo woo, another injury. Taking it steady, hitting the right intensity that you want to hit, come out of the session in a better place, go into tomorrow's easy run in a better place, make a really good decision that next day, run easy because you need recovery, don't push it too hard, you're in a good place. Injury risk stroke reward is daily great decisions. Start to look after your everyday, start to look after the food, the nutrition, the sleep, the hydration. Start to make better decisions when you're out there training in terms of, remember that there's a cost to everything. You push too hard, you do too much, you run too far, there's a cost. If you make a mistake, I did that run too hard, I ran too many miles yesterday, punish yourself in a sensible way. The punishment might be, I'm going to skip tomorrow's 7-mile run and I'm going to go on the cross trainer. I'm going to cross train, I'm going to swim, I'm going to elliptical, whatever you got to do, I'm going to row. Because I know that 3 or 4 days in a row now, I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but I know that the motivation has been really high and I've been pushing, but I think I'm walking a tightrope between injury risk and the alarm bells going off and staying healthy. If you start holding yourself accountable to some of this stuff, the injury risk is going to go down drastically. Bring some foam rolling in, stretching, yoga routines, bring some strength and conditioning into your training. Work on those areas. Most overuse injuries are coming from you're trying to get your body to train at a certain level, a certain intensity, a certain volume, and some of your muscles aren't strong enough to handle that. That could be biomechanical, which is why yoga and some of that stuff really helps, opens the body up a bit more. So if it is biomechanical, then you might be loading one part of your body a bit too much, but it's still breaking down because it's not strong enough. You can also add in some gym that teaches your body how to use muscles. Sometimes your muscles will be strong enough, but they're not functioning together. Check out some of the gym videos, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of this stuff in the Running Masterclass. I couldn't preach it or encourage it enough. The Running Masterclass, joggingroom.com, I've told 1,000 people, well, I've told every person that I've ever told on YouTube about it, that if you don't like it, just send me an email, I'll refund you instantly. I don't think you'll ever find that. It's 60 lectures, 12 hours of tips. If you like all this stuff and you want to know more, you want that knowledge, really useful, go have a look at it. Have a plan, a strategy that says how I'm not going to get injured. I'm going to add an extra run to my training next week. I'm going to add some gym, but I'm going to counter that move by doing some self-massage, some foam rolling, and having 3 Epsom baths every week. Always have a counter strategy to the more part. And that's so important. Hold yourself accountable, start to add these things in, and your running will get better. I hope you stay healthy. I hope you enjoyed today's video. You can follow me on Instagram, Lion Skull, Strava, everything's in the bio. Do all the nice things, like, subscribe, comment if you've got some topics that you'd like to be covered, comment if you found this useful, and take care.